Hello, Helen here. Welcome back to my channel. Today's card I'm going to be using a new Altenew stamp that I've just bought, and I'll be using this die set that goes with it. But I'm going to start off by doing some stenciling with some Nouveau Glimmer paste. I've used it before and it gives a really lovely, subtle but glittery background. So I'm going to do the stenciling on a separate piece of card just a bit bigger than my card base. I'm just going to measure the stencil on the card base just to work out how far up the stencil I want to do the stenciling, and then I can put the stencil and the card down on a piece of board with some painter's tape just to make sure it stays nice and flat while it dries. I'm going to do the stenciling with the Nouveau Glimmer paste called Moonstone. This is just lovely clear drying paste that's just got some glitter in it, so you end up with just the glitter and a little bit of depth with the paste, but nothing too outstanding, and just quite subtle in the background. I've done quite a few cards with this now and I really like the effect. So I spread it on with a palette knife, just making sure that you get a even coating all over into the stencil gaps, but not too thick, and you can just wipe all the rest off and put it back in your pot for next time. It goes a long way. I've just had finished my very first pot and had to buy a second pot, so I have done quite a bit with it, so I'm quite happy with this product. Now I need to take the painter's tape off the stencil to make sure I go and wash it as quickly as possible, because it starts drying and the glitter really sticks to stencil. But I didn't stick this down very well. What I should have done is a layer of the card onto the board and then another layer with a stencil, but I end up having to take all the painter's tape off to get the stencil off, and then I'll just retape it and to keep it flat while it dries, put it aside and dry, and then I can go on with my stamping in the meantime. Now this is the new stamp set I've bought called Dainty Bouquet. I haven't actually stamped it yet, so this is going to be the first time I've done any stamping on it, so I hope it's going to go okay. I'm going to keep the card pretty simple, just with a cut out bouquet of the flowers and then a simple sentiment that's stamped and then cut out, just so that it shows off the lovely background and also the simplicity of the flowers. So in the new Altenew packaging they have a folder with some suggestions of how to use the card, the stamp, and also some suggestions of colour combos, and one of them is this set that I've already got that's got Lagoon and Puffy Heart in it, which is a pretty mauvey pink colour, but they suggest a darker colour, Cosmic Berry for a darker pink and Emerald for the darker green, but I don't have either of those, so I'm just going to use the two darkest colours out of each, the pink and the green, to do my stamping today. I've also got the coordinating die set because I plan to do quite a bit of these cutting out of the bouquets with this stamp, so I thought I'd go ahead and get the die set as well. Because I haven't used the stamp set before, sometimes when you first use a brand new stamp set, it doesn't stamp the best. So what I learnt from another video was that if you rub it over with an eraser rubber, it just helps condition the stamp and makes the ink stick a bit better. So I just went over with all the stamps that I was going to use today and rubbed it over with the rubber or razor, and then rubbed it off with a cloth, and the stamp's ready to go. Now the stamp shows to do the main full stamp with a pale grey, which I've got the limestone out of a set I've got here, so I'm going to do that. And then you stamp the 2 layers of the flowers and the 2 layers of some of the leaves on top of the grey, so that the grey forms some of your shading in your flower and your leaves, which is quite a cool idea. So I'll start by stamping the main flower with and leaves with the limestone. I'll use the Misty to do that. I find with these layered stamp it's just easier to help line up the stamp if you use a positioning tool, but you can do it with an acrylic block. It's quite a big stamp, so I think it's just easier with the Misty. So now I've got one. Now the stamp looks a little bit blotchy here. That's quite common with the Altenew inks, or quite a few of the inks. They do even out when they sit. It soaks into the paper, evens out and pales just a little bit, so it won't look quite as dark as this once it's dried. So I'll go ahead and position the next stamp, which is the first part of the flower, and I'm going to be doing that in the lighter colour, which is Puffy Heart. I'm just looking back at the instructions just to make sure I'm lining up the right part of the flower. It's pretty easy, this one. And so I'll go ahead and stamp that. And then stamp the last layer of the flower, which I'm going to use purple wine for that colour. And then I need to line up the leaves, the first layer of them, which I'm using Volcano Lake as the colour for those. And then finally I'll do the very last, which is just little hints of it, which I'm going to use Lagoon for. So I've trimmed down my piece of card so it'll fit in my die cutting machine, and I'll get the die ready to cut the flower out. Now I'm not very good at lining up dies with especially finer flowers like this, so the trick that I use, that I also saw in another video, was that you cut out the die out of a plain piece of card, and I've cut both out on this piece of card, and then you line up it over your stamping, and then you can just put the die in and you feel it slot into that gap, and you can just cut it from there, and that way you know that it's going to be cut right. Now, as I said, I was going to keep the card quite simple, so I've just got to put it all together now. I don't know whether you can see the sparkle of the background, but it's really pretty in real life. So I've done the sentiment with the Simon Says stamp set called Sending and Wishing, and I've just stamped that with Onyx, VersaFine Onyx Black Ink and Ranger Clear embossing powder, and then just cut around it, and I'm going to mount that with Scotch foam tape. I've also cut out tiny little bits of Scotch foam tape to put behind the flower just to raise a little bit, and I'm just going to put those side by side down towards the bottom of the card. And then I decided I'd just put a couple of, I was going to try and find some pink sequins, but I couldn't find any that went with the pink of the flower, so I've ended up just going for white iridescent sequins, and I've just put just a few dotted around the flower, and that's the card finished. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe and hit the bell notification button, and you'll be notified when I put the next video up. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. As usual, I'll have a couple of videos at the end that you might be interested in also watching, and I'll leave you with just a few photographs of the card close up. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.